lots of time before this one to put our heads together and think about things. And it sort of sounds simplistic, but we just were like, what's the best Bond movie we can make? That's where we started, with the things that we love about Bond films. I mean, whether it's the cars, and the girls, and the gadgets, we've got all that. That was day one. After that, it was about how do we make all of those things interesting and make the story as exciting and as Bond-like as possible.
I, like everyone else, have my own personal relationship with Bond, which began when I was, I suppose, about 9 or 10 years old, when Live and Let Die came out. So, I've always been a fan of the movies, and I thought that it would be a wonderful thing to do.
Sam is such an extraordinary director, has made such wonderful films, and we were so excited at the possibility, we couldn't really actually believe that he would want to do it, but we met him, and he seemed very excited at the possibility. So, there was no turning back then. We seized him and got on with it.
I said to him, this is going to be a new experience, and I say that only because I've made 2 of them, and it was a very new experience for me, and I wasn't prepared, and nothing can quite prepare you. But I knew that Sam had put all of his knowledge of the movie making behind it, but also all of his knowledge and love of Bond.
Action! I've never felt like I wanted to reinvent the wheel. I don't think it's about, we can't have glamorous locations, we can't have beautiful women. We've done that before. I think that's a given in the Bond movie. When I go and see a Bond movie, that's what I want. But it's a tonal issue, and it struck me that it is still possible to make a big, fabulous, glamorous, escapist movie, and yet at the same time to say something about the world that we're living in.
3 months ago, you lost the drive containing the identity of every agent embedded in terrorist organizations across the globe.
The screenplay I thought was excellent. As I read it and imagined the film, it seemed to be of a caliber or complexity that I don't think I've seen in a Bond film before.
My operatives are pursuing every avenue.
It's gone.
At the opening story, this piece of data has been lost, and basically that means the collapse of the Secret Service, certainly in the UK and probably in Europe and maybe even in the United States, and it's as big a disaster as there could possibly be.
You both know what's at stake here.
Sending an emergency evacuation squad.
We're too bloody late.
Trust me.
Eve and Bond are working together in trying to rectify it, basically chasing Patrice, the baddie, and trying to retrieve the disc that he has stolen.
It looks like there isn't much more road left.
Take the bloody shot.
What I wanted to try and do in this movie is to push the whole world of MI6 as far towards its own death, if you like, sort of a suicide mission, so that it could then prove its value, its worth, leaving Bond back at the centre where he's always been, but not without a journey in which all of those things at various points seem to be over, including Bond himself.
What do you say about a man like that?
The most important relationship in the movie is Bond and M, without a doubt. And those were the most challenging scenes to write, because their relationship is so unique. And in this movie, we wanted to make it very personal.
I think from the very beginning we wanted to really mine the relationship between Bond and M, because it is the most significant relationship he has in his life. M is the only person who represents authority to him, and you have 2 extraordinary actors. We thought, let's just go all the way.
007, reporting for duty.
Where the hell have you been?
Enjoying death.
It's a thrilling part to play. And you get to, to be a huge figure of authority, and you get to boss him about, and there is a very special relationship, I think, between Bond and M. I've just been reviewing Bond's tests. Seems you've passed by the skin of your teeth. You're back on active service.
Mallory is there to oversee M's running of MI6. What we've tried to suggest is he has a charm and an old world courtesy, but underneath there's a steel there.
You're not sure whether he's going to be a help or a hindrance to M and Bond. He seems to ask a lot of difficult questions and be very critical. It's a very ambiguous character.
We do distrust him. He seems to be the enemy, but he actually is much more in the mold of Bond, which is he's dispassionate, or he appears to be dispassionate, and that he's just doing his job.
I only have one question. Why not stay dead? There's no shame in saying you've lost a step.
I don't think even in my wildest dreams when I started, I thought I would have a cast that included, on top of Daniel Craig and Judi Dench, also Ralph Fiennes and Javier Bardem and Albert Finney and Naomi Harris and Berenice Marlowe and Ben Whishaw and Rory Kinnear.
We had a wish list of who we wanted. I mean, dream cast. We went down the list and we got every single one of them. I don't know if that will ever happen again, but I'm sure happy that it happened this time.
I'm your new quartermaster.
You must be joking.
He sort of represents sort of one of the conflicts in the film, which is between the old and the new. I'll hazard I can do more damage on my laptop sitting in my pajamas than you can do in a year in the field. He's the new breed, really, of intelligence, and it's largely conducted through cyberspace and cyber kind of warfare.
So why do you need me?
Every now and then a trigger has to be pulled.
Or not pulled. It's hard to know which in your pajamas. Q.
007. I've tried, I suppose, to not think too much about the responsibility and just focus on the story that we're telling in Skyfall. Of course, it's important to understand the history of the franchise, but at the same time, this feels really like a new chapter. Author PPKS 9mm short. It's been coded to your palm print, so only you can fire it. Less of a random killing machine, more of a personal statement.
It's a James Bond movie. I'm the lead in the movie. I'm in nearly every scene. But the characters around him are so crucially important to how entertaining the movie is. And we've just been blessed with every character.
If I could have invented a Bond girl, it would have been Berenice.
You made such a bold entrance into a little drama.
Because she has all the components of a classic Bond girl, by which I mean a woman, not a girl, sexy, mysterious, and she happens to be a fantastic actress.
Only a certain kind of woman wears a backless dress with a Beretta 70 strapped to her thigh.
One can never be too careful when handsome men in tuxedos carry walkthroughs. She's really a femme fatale, a strong character who doesn't fear anything. And then the mask drops, and you can see the vulnerability in her character.
I want to meet your employer.
How much do you know about fear?
All there is.
Not like this. Not like him.
When I read it, I felt the script was very powerful and the character has dimensions to be played.
Just look at you, chasing spies. MI6. So old-fashioned.
Silva is angry because he was betrayed. He has been suffering that betrayal for years that almost end up with his life. So he wants some revenge.
She sent you after me knowing you're not ready, knowing you would likely die. Mommy was very bad.
There was a desire to find an adversary that would be equal to Daniel, and Javier Bardem's name was mentioned right at the very beginning.
I think you've got to believe this person could exist, but I think they've got to be bigger than life as well. You've got to think this person is capable of doing anything to get what they want.
I think it's great because it's something personal. It's not about destroying the world. So that helps me to have more kind of a realistic circumstances to work. But also it was an opportunity to do kind of a little homage to the villains, in the sense that it's something that I've seen during the years, and I thought it was a good opportunity to have fun also doing the job.
He's extraordinary. I think he will be the best Bond villain we've ever had because he's so complex and he's dangerous and compelling. And when you have he and Daniel on the screen together, it's fireworks.
The two survivors. This is what she made us.
Everybody needs a hobby.
So what's yours?
Resurrection.
I think that the way any director deals with a huge film, if they're lucky enough to be able to do one, is in tiny incremental steps. You can only do one day at a time, and if you try and make the entire movie all at once, then your head will explode, particularly a movie on this scale. But if you treat it as kind of 4 films, there's a period when you're in a studio, and then there was a period when we were in London, and there's the Shanghai bit, and then there's the Turkey bit. And each section of the movie has a different set of rules and a different set of ways that we wanted to shoot it.
We go to Istanbul, we go up to Scotland, we go to China, the usual tour around the world with Bond. And we see them in slightly different ways. In China, we see a different kind of China, a very modern, futuristic city.
It's pretty varied in the sense that you've got the heat and bustle of Istanbul to the emptiness of Scotland, and has some pretty extraordinary locations in between. But in a way, the thing that I've focused on almost more than anything else is giving some sense of mythic scale to London, which of all the places is probably the most difficult to shoot. And that may just be that it's my hometown and I find it very difficult to get any kind of distance on it, but it's also that it's never, I mean, it's not a particularly photogenic city. And I think that's one of the things I hope we've done in a really interesting way.
The idea of London was to try to use a London we haven't seen before. Of course, we're around Whitehall and the places of power in the government, but we went to the underground first, where MI6 is relocated, and then in the metros, use the crowds, the metros themselves, and have a chase through the underground. So it's a London that we haven't really seen before in a major film.
It was a very conscious decision to make London the center of the movie. And so much the story has to do with the machinations of M and MI6, it was also just necessary that we spend time in London. But also thematically, in a movie about Bond rediscovering who he is and coming back to life in a way, we thought it was appropriate for him to do that on the streets that he knows. Driving his old original Aston Martin through the streets of London seemed to us very appropriate.
And I suppose that's completely inconspicuous.
Get in. I'm sure we could have had a brand new Aston Martin and it would have been beautiful and fantastic, but the story, it's about going back home and it's about returning to his roots and confronting old demons and things, so it was appropriate really to use the DB5, and we get some good use out of it.
When people say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, that's probably a formula for complacency in our business. So I think we're always looking for ways to rejuvenate it. But action's a challenge, because we've been doing it for 50 years. A lot of other films have been doing wonderful action sequences. But we have a team of people that get together and help the director formulate the most exciting and interesting action sequence we can dream up.
Writing action sequences is one of the great challenges and the great joys of being a screenwriter. And Bondian action is very unique. It's tough, it's real, and it's heightened. You know, there are those things that happen in a Bondian action sequence that can't maybe quite happen, but they're believable enough.
It's the big challenge, and with each successive one it becomes more difficult because it's been done before again.
You can have as many explosions as you like, but the dramatic core of it has got to work. It's probably more a slight return to the big old action sequences of yore.
Every consecutive Bond film that you do, there's always pressure to make it more spectacular. But I think you've got to make it more spectacular, but keep it within the storyline. I think that's one thing that I really like about this film, is that we've got great characters, there's a great story, and all the action that I'm involved with in it sort of dovetails fantastically into the whole storyline.
I'm pretty harsh on action, and I want it to mean something and have a style of its own and have an idea that I haven't seen before, which is not easy because there are more action movies every year than probably anything else, or at least action sequences. But I've loved it.
Daniel contributes a great deal to designing the action and the fights in particular. And he's the one that really pulls it off because he wants to do as much of it as he possibly can. He's the reason why the action works as well as it does, because he sells it. He's up there, and I think audiences know that.
Every time I saw him doing these stunts or these action scenes, I was really impressed by how easy he does it and how demanding they are. I mean, it's a lot of work. You have to be prepared for that and committed to that, and also unafraid of doing it, which in the moment where they say, okay, rolling, from the outside, I go like, Jesus, if I were you, I won't be doing that.
Daniel's an extremely hardworking actor. He's probably the most hardworking I've ever seen. And it's not only the mental preparation, but the physical preparation. He works out like a demon. He works out like a professional athlete. And he is really committed to the role and committed to being the best Bond ever.
We've always relied on the fact that we do things for real in Bond movies, and that's just the way it is. And if there's CGI, it's just to help out as opposed to sort of creating the scene.
I do hope that wasn't for me.
But that is. This train crash is huge, and it's real. It's a real train crashing for real. It's not digital. It's amazingly well done.
I didn't realise when I was sort of thinking about it how big it would actually eventually end up being. It was turned into be a monster in the end. The actual mechanism for it was almost like an overhead roller coaster. We put lots of goalposts up out of big heavy gauge steel I-beams, and then put a overhead track in, and then dropped hangers down from that track, and then hung the train underneath it. And we built 2 full-size carriages, each which were 60 foot long. So we were dealing with 120 foot of carriage. We rigged it up to a big, powerful truck and a cable system, and then turned the key on action, drove off, and in it came. I mean, one of the things we were concerned about that we had to pay particular attention to was stopping it, because the carriages themselves are something like between 12, 15 tonne, and we only had a certain area to stop it. I think before it hit the tank, the side of the wall of the tank in the 007, I think we were about far away. But no, it worked a treat. I was very, very pleased with it.
Whenever we're preparing a new James Bond film, everybody always asks the same questions. Who's the villain? Who's the girl? And who's singing the song? And for the 50th anniversary, we would determine that we would find a real powerhouse female vocalist who would deliver a classic Bond theme. And obviously, the person that came to mind was Adele. We were really excited at the possibility of having her. She came to meet with us, she read the script, she took it very, very seriously, and she's written with Paul Epworth a beautiful song that delivers on every level. And of course, she has the most extraordinary voice. So couldn't be better. Dream come true.
In honesty, when I look at Skyfall, I think one thing most clearly, which is I think we've brought it back to Ian Fleming. I think there's a tone to the movie, I think there's a seriousness to the movie, and I think there's a panache to the movie that to me speak of Ian Fleming. And if at the end of the day, we've been able, after 50 years of movies, to realign this iconic character with his roots, I think that's fantastic.
Despite the fact this is not directly based on a Fleming novel, I feel the spirit of Fleming and the spirit of Bond as it was in '62, as it was 50 years ago, is hopefully alive and well in this movie.
There's a style we've been going with. It's a richness that is there that I think probably reminds us a little more of the 60s. It certainly reminds me much more of sort of... Goldfinger, I think, is a good touching point. If you look at Goldfinger, the style of that and the locations for that, I think that it does feed into that.
What we've tried to create here has a timeless feel, and I find that period of the early 60s and when Bond began, in a sense, as a movie character, still remains incredibly stylish. And so we've taken some of that and put it into this movie. And I hope that we've come up with something that we're going to feel proud of and stands alone as a film, not just as a Bond film, not just as the 23rd Bond film, which we're very proud to have made, but as a film in its own right.
I'm sure that it's going to be bigger and better than anything we've seen, because that's always the aim. The aim is always to step it up a notch and to make it that much more exciting, that much more dangerous. So I'm sure they'll achieve their aim.
I think Sam and everybody was very brave with it, in the sense that we went to a place where I guess James Bond hasn't ever visited.
It's been an incredible experience because there were things that we wanted to achieve, and I genuinely feel like we've achieved them and many, many more. All of us felt that we needed to push this movie as far as we could and make this the best yet.
I'd like people to say the action was cool and it was surprisingly funny, and I would also like them to be moved by it in an unexpected way. I'd like people to really feel like they've gone on a journey. For that, you have to risk everything in a way. You have to have the characters risk everything. You have to almost destroy the entire genre in order to rebuild it. And that's what we've tried to do, and I think it's exciting to see whether people will react to it.
Country.
England.
Gun.
Shot.
Murder.
Employment.
Skyfall. Skyfall.
Done.